Unfortunately, not too much of a brighter topic either.
So this segment will serve as a follow-up to a segment we did a few weeks ago on the Facebook files. Um, it's a story we covered where a bunch of news or a bunch of documents got leaked from Facebook to the Wall Street Journal,
By
and
Frances Haugen, who was the whistleblower.
yes, and we learned a lot about what happened. The Facebook files mostly covered a lot with election misinformation. Uh, this week, we got a lot of information from the Facebook Papers, which was a similar report done by the Associated Press. So, um, this one covered a lot more on different topics that were very similar to how Facebook manages and traffics their engagement online. So, I do want to talk about first of all the anti-vaccine rhetoric that was spreading like a wildfire throughout Facebook.
Yeah.
So basically, like they just were completely unable to completely regulate any anti-vaccine rhetoric because when any instance of vaccine misinfo popped up was way back in March when
Yeah, when the virus was first hitting the United States.
or no, March of 2021.
Oh, you mean, oh, sorry, vaccine. I thought you meant COVID in general. Yes, vaccine misinformation did start around March
Because
of 2021,
mind you,
yes.
that's when Biden got his first vaccine. Like right around that time frame between January and March
Yeah.
was when people were when they finally opened up vaccines to the sick and elderly, and by that point we only had like a small portion of the population vaccinated, and then from there, just all of it flooded in.
Yeah,
Like they just refused to acknowledge anything going on their website and just refused to do anything about it.
yeah. And this is post-election, so this is after the time where Frances Haugen pointed out that Facebook had stopped regulating what was going on the site because, as she mentioned during her interview on 60 Minutes, she talked about the fact that the regulations and the filters were up during the election to prevent misinformation, but after the election ended, they took it down.
Yeah,
So this is still post them taking it down, and people internally at Facebook knowing that they could always have it up.
all right. Because on Twitter, they both had warnings for both, if I'm not mistaken, for both election and COVID misinfo, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Both YouTube and Twitter and TikTok had election and COVID misinformation.
Really, TikTok had that too?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times. I saw there was election misinformation on TikTok on some TikToks I watched.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was one of the big ones, and we do want to avoid repeating anything we've said 2 weeks ago when we covered the Facebook files. But anything you have to else to add on to that?
I mean, on some level, it's more of what we already knew, in the sense that Facebook has been completely and totally irresponsible with this platform and allowing misinformation to originate and spread across its website just completely like unfiltered. Just it's just out there and it's spread and spread and spread, and Facebook really didn't do much to curb it until far too late. And even now, despite the fact that they have fact checking on, still so much gets,
Yeah,
through.
because the big thing about Facebook is that people will trust anything that people they know are spreading.
Yeah.
Because I'm not familiar with any of the misinfo that happens on Facebook, but let's just say, for example, somebody says that the uh, the vaccine is only 70% effective,
Yeah.
and that spreads, and so people are now under the opinion, even though it's completely illogical, that it's not even worth it because there's still a supposed 30% chance of getting the vaccine, which or getting the virus after being vaccinated, which people who keep up with the data know that
That's
even with
patently false.
even with the Delta variant, most vaccines are still above 90%.
Yes. Also, this is your obligatory warning. please, please, please get vaccinated if you haven't already. And if you have been vaccinated, please get the booster shot. I beg of you, is to only help us and the world move forward from this virus as it is currently devastating everyone. It devastates people on an individual level, and it devastates people on a systemic level. And we really need to get past this virus. So I beg of you, please, if you haven't been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. And if you have been vaccinated, please get the booster shot.
And this doesn't even get said enough, but please make sure the people around you that you know that don't get that haven't gotten vaccinated, make sure that you uh, give them the information so that way they understand how important this vaccine is. Just because this needs to be said, owning people with facts will not convince these people.
Yeah.
You have to show compassion that you care about these people because at the end of the day, they do think differently from us, but that doesn't lessen the impact that the virus has on all of us as a population.
And if worse comes to worse, and there are loved ones that you have that do not want to get the vaccine despite anything you say, you may have to draw the line in the sand and say, if you don't get it, then I'm just not going to be around you. And say if it's family members and you have children, you would also extend that to your children. Say it's if you're a parent and your parents, so your children's grandparents, don't want to get the vaccine, you can just draw the line in the sand. It's like, I love you, mom and dad, but me nor my children will be visiting you until you get vaccinated because it is a safety risk. And that is definitely a bit brutal, but I think it's a bit necessary if you've exhausted all your options when your loved ones aren't listening because it's definitely needed to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
I mean, the virus will only get worse, and I can only imagine what a world would be like where we have a forever like COVID variants, like the flu, except COVID is much more viral.
Let's. This was a good
PSA.
good PSA for our audience, but let's go ahead and get back on topic because all of that did need to be mentioned because vaccine misinfo is its own virus in and of itself.
Yeah.
And
But
combating both the online in quotations virus and the COVID virus itself.
Yeah.
Facebook making it just much harder to combat this is really it's
beyond frustrating.
It makes you feel helpless.
Yeah.
Because you are equipped with all of these like data and statistics and people around you will reject it.
Yeah. So I wanted to actually circle back to when you brought up about how Facebook misinformation spreads. The biggest way it spreads is how so say you're in a small town and Johnny, the hardware store owner, he sees something on Facebook that says like the COVID vaccine is whatever. I don't even want to create a hypothetical fake thing lest it spread.
Let's use the one we used before with the 70%.
Yeah, I don't even feel comfortable using that. Just Johnny sees something that's COVID misinformation, whatever it may be, and he sends it out, not maliciously. Maybe because he sees it from a Facebook group that he's in, and he thinks, "Oh my God, like if this is true, I'll just send it out to spread awareness." And then let's say that Susan, who is a teacher in the same town, she sees Johnny post that on Facebook, and she's like, "Oh wow, is this true? I mean, Johnny posted it on here, and I respect Johnny. I think Johnny's a pretty like." Smart, well-intentioned guy. If this is true, then I should, and he's spreading awareness about it. I should probably spread awareness about it too. And so Susan sends it, and then Dale sees it, and David sees it, and Sarah sees it, and so on and so forth. And that's how it really spreads. Is it spreads because people that you trust to be normal, well-meaning, upstanding individuals that you don't think would ever be susceptible to propaganda are saying it, so it makes you more likely to believe it. Especially
because when it's people that you know online, you don't initially take them in bad faith because, like, it probably wasn't them who found it or not found it, them who made the info or found the research themselves. That's just data that they've got, well, data in quotation marks,
Yeah,
but it's stuff that they've found online and now we're passing it to them. So why would I doubt them if I know them and could trust them? Because it could be something we talk about when we get together for the family barbecue or something.
yeah. And that's it's really sad because it's taking one of the most baseline ways of how Facebook was even meant to be used, and it's just being completely perverted. Because, I mean, the concept of people in a town that all know each other being able to share the same information with each other on the same platform, and then being able to send that information to family members that don't live in that town, but live in another city, country, state, continent, like it's even like it's supposed to be a great thing, but now we're seeing the problem with it. We're now seeing how perverted it could become when misinformation is a thing that gets sent across the world. And it comes from, at most of the time, well-meaning, well-intentioned people who are just scared. They don't know what's going on because maybe, I mean, some people, not some, a lot of people get their news from social media nowadays. They don't sit down and they don't watch like sit down and watch the television. They get their news from like Facebook or Twitter, or they'll watch YouTube videos about it. And so with that happening, they're scared.
Yeah.
They see things that normally tell them news that they think is correct, telling them all these horrifying things, and they're scared and they're like, "Oh my God, like this is terrible. Like we're being lied to. Like I need to tell everyone."
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it spreads
And it's
because
also because Facebook feeds off of the the accelerated emotions of the users that engage with their website.
yeah,
Because the more that people use the website, the more revenue that they get in the long run. So the fact that people are getting so emotional is pretty much their business model.
yeah. And the other thing about it is that even if someone was to retract that information, even if the original poster of the misinformation said, "Wait, guys, I was mistaken. This is incorrect information," it's already too late. It's
Like
already spread everywhere.
most people won't go back and fact check it at all. They'll just hear the information and take it as fact.
Because, like I said, even if the person in the original Facebook group that Johnny is in posts a follow up and says, "Oh my God, this was wrong," Johnny may realize it's wrong and he may post it. But, Henry, all the way in Cincinnati, who saw it from his daughter that lives 3 cities away from where Johnny is, he doesn't know that. But he saw the information that Johnny first spread. So that makes it even worse. Because even when the people that unknowingly spread the information try to retract it, it doesn't reach the same people that the misinformation reached. And so that just makes it worse because it doesn't fuel the algorithm in the same way.
Yeah.
And so
So
it's really sad. But
yeah,
anyways, I'm continuing with the Facebook papers.
yeah. The other one of the other articles that I read up on before the stream was in regards to the Facebook papers was every how everything following up the George Floyd incident
Yeah.
that happened last summer was a lot of the hate that was going through most social media sites could have undeniably be traced back to Trump's tweet calling people out there protesting thugs and a disgrace to the name of George Floyd. And
Yes.
in case anyone watching has forgotten, yes, he did tweet that. And when I first, because I wasn't hyper engaged with politics at the time of him tweeting out, but when I first read it, I felt a pit in my stomach first watching that or reading that because I didn't think this was real.
I mean, yeah, it's just inflammatory rhetoric that's supposed to sow division, and unfortunately, when that division
Because
breeds action, it becomes something called stochastic terrorism.
because it wasn't even anything like racist. It was because I've already lived and seen everything that's happened since last year.
Hmm.
I know what that language causes, and that's what made me feel really awful about reading what he posted on Twitter and on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff influences real life events. Like people die as a result of
Not, not,
this misinformation.
not to say that Trump isn't racist. He absolutely is, but
Oh yeah,
because like the what I'm saying is like the tweet wasn't like
the,
really that.
the tweet in and of itself was not racist, but the language that was used inspires racism.
Mhm.
Like when he uses the term thug. Thug is a thug is usually associated with black male criminals within
Because
the inner city.
it's a dog whistle that's used all the time by politicians, by Fox News.
No, I would say not even by Fox News. I
No,
mean,
I've heard them say it.
no. When I mean not by Fox News, I mean not just Fox News. I mean, if you prior to like 2015, almost all news agencies used thug as a dog whistle or used it ubiquitously about describing black individuals. I mean, I remember when what was it? The Malice in the Palace, which was a massive fight that took place in a basketball game between the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit. Why am I blanking on the name? Indiana Pacers, and I think it was a Detroit team. But either way, when describing the players defending themselves from fans that were clearly trying to assault them and trying to attack them, the players were labeled as thugs. And that is just far from the truth. They were just people defending themselves. I mean, it all started because a fan threw a drink at a player as he was as he was by the stands. But the fact that they used the term thug completely villainized them to the point where it ruined a lot of their careers. So that just goes to show that the use of the word thug by the president of all people can incite a lot of ugly images in people's head, and those ugly images can lead to violence.
Yeah. And then when I mentioned the fact that it was undeniable that his language caused all the hate, it was actually from an internal study at Facebook that was able to identify this. And like I said 2 weeks ago, them doing nothing about all the hate that's spewing and all the misinfo is just it's it's hard to put into words, but it feels like so hopeless because you want to combat this hatred and this misinfo, and sometimes you are kind of powerless to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened earlier this year with the January 6th insurrection, which is probably, in American history, probably one of the best examples of what stochastic terrorism is, which is a leader posturing and advocating for violence, and then his followers going through with said violence. And as we know, January 6th insurrection was partially planned on Facebook.
Yeah,
Many of the
and
organizers were on Parler, Gab, but also Facebook, and Facebook had a lot of people organizing on there.
yeah, it's because this is a follow up to what we talked about 2 weeks ago. It's just a lot. We've been sitting on a lot of information for a while, and so all of it compounding at once is very overwhelming.
Yeah,
So it's a very difficult topic to address because we're seeing it, everything happening online impact everything in real life, and it's a lot to process.
yeah, it really is. But at the core of this, we see the complete and total irresponsibility by Facebook to manage the misinformation and the hatred that's being spread on its platform. The complete and total unwillingness to not police itself because policing themselves cuts in profit. And I think that's incredibly sad, and I also think it's incredibly evil.
Yeah,
I think it's evil that you would let such harmful and destructive language propagate on your platform and you do nothing about it while knowing just how much damage you are doing with it, knowing that people are dying, whether they die from violence or they die from the virus, or maybe they die from violence by people who believe that that is a way to stop the virus. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And I think it's legitimately evil. I think that the people in charge of Facebook are terrible people, and don't think it's a I do not think it's an overstatement to say that these people are legitimately profiting off of evil being spread.
Yeah. Well, I do want to move on to our next topic here, but I do want to preface it because initially, upon hearing about it, this story does want to make you laugh because of how ridiculous it is, but at the same time, it can be very scary because of the consequences that could come from this. And what we're referring to is Trump establishing a new social media outlet called Truth Social.
Yeah. So we've all kind of known for a little while now that Trump was looking to create his own social media platform, especially after he was taken off of most of the mainstream social media outlets following the January 6th insurrection. He was banned and barred from many social media outlets. So we kind of heard that he was planning on creating his own social media. And the demand for this was created even higher after um, social media outlets like Gab and Parler were taken off app stores.
Because if you'll remember, um, I'm sorry, Trump even created his own little blog where he would shoot out fake tweets. Or when I say fake, I mean like he wanted to post a tweet, but he can't.
Yeah,
And so he would just put out these blogs where he would address the citizens of the United States in these small little snippets. And then that ended up collapsing in on itself. So, and then he's even, because you and I both saw the announcement post that was made for this outlet,
yeah.
where I believe it quoted him as the chair.
Yes, he is. So Truth Social is going to be a social media app, but it also is like Facebook, obviously going to be an organization, a corporation.
Yeah,
And Donald Trump is going to be the chair of that. So think of him in the vein of someone like Mark Zuckerberg being like on the chair for Facebook.
yeah, and I want to repeat this because at first glance, this story is funny because I mean when they advertised it, the subtitle under the App Store like image that they had where like you can download it is like "Follow the Truth,"
Which,
which is like in and of itself very funny, but you do like you think about it and let it settle in your head after everything we've learned from the Facebook papers and the Facebook files is that this could be very dangerous.
yeah, I mean, we know there's going to be a profit motive because Trump has stated that it is going to be a on-demand service with shows, podcasts, videos, and written posts. And you're gonna pay for those services, which means there's a profit motive.
And
Meaning,
I believe in the post that it stated they had an immense budget for this.
yeah, meaning that we may see it happen all over again, except this time it's going to be people that are the most radical, hyping themselves up over and over, whipping themselves into a frenzy with a bunch of misinformation, now completely and totally sanctioned in a platform under the former president.
Because there's no way this is getting regulated in any sense of the word.
Yeah, well, I mean, Gab and Parler were one thing, but this has real backing behind a powerful individual. And like we said, the January 6th insurrection was started on social media sites like Gab and Parler, which are right wing social media outlets that really had the most radical of the radical being able to whip each other up into a frenzy.
Because mostly because they marketed themselves as like the haven for the First Amendment free speech.
Yeah. But now that Trump is getting into this arena, the ball game is about to get a lot more dangerous. I mean, we could potentially see far worse things come out of it,
Yeah.
especially if he does intend to run for 2024, which, oh God, I cannot imagine a presidential election with his own social media like outlet being able to run wall to wall propaganda to his fans, whipping them up even more.
Yeah. Best case scenario happens is he doesn't run based off of the success of this, and then the entirety of the base on there gets whipped up into some sort of frenzy to the point where this gets banned off of any app store after the next election.
Yeah, but
That's the best thing that could happen because this if this does come into fruition because some of these like First Amendment social media sites have been nothing but failures from this point. Because I mean, Parler got taken down how many times at this point?
I think it's been like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, just the idea that this could be in any way successful is entirely frightening.
Yeah, especially because Donald Trump is a powerful person. He has allies both politically and business wise, meaning that this could receive a sizable backing from some powerful individuals, not just based in the United States, but based in other countries. Meaning that it may be able to become, maybe able to sustain itself. And
Yeah,
the worst part is potential for its international reach.
yeah, because
As
as
right,
as revealed in the Facebook files, is that even though Facebook had its filters that could recognize it anti-vaccine and election misinformation and just not respond to it, it turns out that in other languages they couldn't even catch anything.
yeah, this was also brought up in the John Oliver segment about Facebook misinformation, where there was misinformation being spread in Vietnamese, and Facebook just couldn't even pick it up because it doesn't recognize misinformation in the Vietnamese language. And Trump is an international figure who definitely has allies everywhere in multiple countries. So I can only imagine what type of rhetoric could be spread within other countries and how that may affect their political systems. Because, like Frances Haugen mentioned it when she blew the whistle and talked to 60 Minutes, politicians in other countries have forced themselves to move in more radical directions to keep up with the misinformation spread by Facebook. Now imagine Donald Trump's social media outlet whipping up that same frenzy. Now you're having another app with potentially the ability to gain a reasonable foothold in the social media zeitgeist, and now it could get even worse because the people that are going to be on this site initially are going to be the most radical people, the ones that are definitely looking to convert people and organize.
Right.
And that is going to be a terrifying sight. I mean, when the alt right had Charlottesville happen, it was terrifying. And mind you, the aftermath of it destroyed the alt right movement as we knew it then. The modern, what we would consider alt right movement, is something, in my opinion, that rose from the ashes of that destroyed movement. But
Because that was
the mechanisms that led to that could very much be remade within this Trump social media app.
yeah. Yeah, this just needed to be said because I do see a lot of people laughing about it from a distance, but I do feel like there's a responsibility to warn people that this could be a real thing that ends up taking off, and we just need to be careful because this is very dangerous.
And I can only imagine what happens if right wing demagogues such as Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, like if they start digging their fingers in there and shuffling their fans over into that area, it could become a lot worse.
Especially because it's going to be outside of because like Facebook is still kind of pushing it within being mainstream because of how like right centric their um, engagement is,
Mhm.
but this will be completely out of the mainstream. This
Yes.
will be its own little isolated island in the entirety of the social media sphere.
And also because of the fact that there's going to be like videos and programming that could be put on there, like you could have things like Daily Wire movies, like Run, Hide, Fight, or the project that they're working with Gina Carano on. That could debut on this platform, and it could. I mean, it could start doing like they could be an entire market now of creating just right wing propaganda like media for this app.
Yeah,
And since it would only be viewed within its own purview of the right wing viewers within it, there'd be no way of, you know, uh, like no way of really debunking this thing in the marketplace of ideas if it's something that's insulated to this area.
yeah,
It's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like how a lot of rumors and misinformation originate on places like 4chan back in the ye old days, and how people really couldn't like understand where it was all coming from because Facebook was considered like not Facebook, sorry, 4chan was considered its own little island in the internet. This could be a modern day look at that. And I mean, speaking of 4chan, I mean, the image board websites, they most definitely will flock to the people of the image board websites will flock to this social media app as well as a lot of right wing, a lot of a lot of right wing radical like ideology and conspiracies originate on places like 4chan and 8chan. And I can only imagine what happens if they all start to coalesce on a singular platform, bankrolled by a very powerful individual.
yeah.
It is a terrifying sight, and not to be all like doom and gloom, like this is the end, like no, it's not necessarily the end. Doesn't necessarily mean that we will see violence. There's no guarantee that this will even succeed. There's no guarantee that this could even go past the initial like, announcement phase. For all we know, this is just a giant publicity stunt.
Yeah.
But the
Over
idea of it potentially happening is one that we should be aware of and one that we should definitely be vigilant about its harm.
Yeah. Overall, I know the mood of this past segment has been a little bit on the lower side, but overall, it is important to stay optimistic because the last thing that our movement needs is for people to feel powerless because ultimately we can um, power through all of this.
Yeah, I mean, if this social media app does come to fruition, the best we can do, especially if the misinformation comes out just as strong as it does on Facebook, is report the app on app stores, try to get in contact with as many individuals that you can get to, not just ordinary people, but like ones in positions of power where you could report these things. Please do. If you see calls for violence on any social media apparatus, um, please call your local like FBI, intelligence agency, whatever, to report violence that could be spread because who knows
Yeah,
what could happen.
yeah. I definitely need a few minutes after stream to calm down and re-optimize myself because this was a bit of a
Yeah,
this was a bit of a low topic and
yeah. This was the past three have been a bit of heavy topics, and it kind of sucks to end the stream on a downer note, but I mean, sometimes that's how the world is.
ultimately it is important that this information is out there and is known because without it we are really powerless to advocate for the things that we believe in at the end of
Yeah,
the day.
I mean, we always have this we always have the power to make change, but that change could go in any direction.
Right.
So it's really up to us to really push for the change that we want to see. And for us personally, we want to see a world that is equal, that is fair, where there is no unfair, unjust hierarchies, no unfair social constructs that, impede on people's freedoms, things like that. Like gender equality, racial equality, sexual equality, workers' rights. I mean, I'll go as far as to say, I mean, for me personally, the abolition of capitalism. I know you haven't gotten full, yeah, I know you haven't fully gotten on board with that, but
We can still accomplish ethical capitalism. I still believe it's possible.
yes, yes. and the unicorns and the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus exist as well.
Don't you dare demean me like that. I'm only you're only slightly to the left of me. You're literally one tier left of me. Don't even start with that.
I mean, one tier left. I mean, a tier difference is the difference between Aegis and Cloud. So, on that note, on that note, I think we're gonna sign off for the night, right?
Yeah, we definitely want to take the rest of the night to perk back up after a few downer segments for sure.
But anyways, this has been the Worldwide Wednesday podcast. I'm Shiny.
And I'm Sovereign.
And yeah, this is the end of episode 4. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel Worldwide Wednesday. Follow the Twitch account at the Shiny Sovereign Show, and please like, comment, subscribe, follow, retweet, share social media, share all of it so we can grow as a community. And yeah, so we can just keep making more episodes and talking more and more about entertainment, politics, and the sort.
Yeah, we've actually seen a doubling of our subscriber base on our YouTube channel in the past week alone, which is honestly stunning.
Yeah, you guys have been doing amazing, and it's been really great just seeing the growth and seeing how much love you guys are putting into it. So I would love to see it continue and just grow.
Yep. Well, this is us signing off for now. Have a good night, and we will see you next week at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific.
Yep. Good night, everyone.